I have the beginnings of another one in mind. Not quite there yet.
I'm trying to limit myself to 500 words. One, to keep it punchy, and two, it doesn't take up too much time because you can knock out 500 words in an hour.
Can you make it but if you do a larger one, can you break it into parts and then have something coming out every
Hello
week?
and welcome to Corner Comics, your mostly weekly comic book reading club. I'm your host, Burkhoff. Each week, my friends and I get together. We share a few issues with each other, and then we get together and we talk about those issues. This week is a little bit different. We have a special guest, Mr. Keith McWomble, who is
I'm special.
is a co-host on my other podcast, Pixel Pints, since Emmanuel is away. But Russ is joining us as always. So, gentlemen, how are you doing this weekend?
Pretty good. Staying home, staying safe, cooking instead of going out and having it done for me. You know.
Nice. Keith?
Meh. Seems all right, innit? I'm here to provide the dour side. Whenever I've watched this, you three are always too happy about stuff.
Okay.
And I was going to say, whenever I watch you guys are destroying something. Something is bad, and people are idiots, and you need to let them know. So I feel you.
That's just the internet, isn't it? That's all the internet is for.
Correct. I guess that's all the internet that comes to your computer is for. Yes.
Yeah, slandering other people anonymously. Except I do it with my face on screen.
This week we're doing something a little different.
We're talking about X-Men because Emmanuel's not here.
Yep, pretty much. Emmanuel let us know that he was going to be not able to do the podcast this week. He's off on special assignment. And I thought, well, it's a perfect time to talk about X-Men. And instead of single issues this week, we're reviewing basically the trade of House of M, the standalone issues, the special event that happened. This was 2005, if I remember correctly.
I think so, yes.
It was a while ago.
It was 6. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, 2005 or 2006. This is sort of Marvel coming out of bankruptcy and figuring out what they need to do to revamp their comics. House of M follows the Avengers Disassembled storyline. So we'll put that into context before we sort of talk about where the first issue of House of M starts. So the Avengers have been disbanded, and Wanda is losing her mind or has already gone insane, and is talking
after killing some of the Avengers.
Right, after losing control of her powers and killing some of the Avengers.
As you do. I mean, or it's called a Sunday in the Marvel Universe.
Right, yeah, just another Sunday. And so the Avengers and the X-Men get together and they say, what are we going to do with Wanda? And Magneto says, well, I'll take my daughter and I'll take her to Genosha. And we'll figure something out, right? So that's sort of what this storyline is, and where that starts. But before we get into the individual issues, Keith, you had approached me and you said, when am I going to get to come on Corner Comics? And I said, well, what comics are you reading and what do you want to bring on the show? And you said, well, I don't read single issues. I read graphic novels and trade paperbacks. So give us a little background on sort of your history with comics and your current relationship with comics.
I've always liked them as an art form.
Okay.
But I never, even when I was younger, got into buying single issues because I always found that the limited availability that I had where I lived at the time, if I wanted to read a series, I'd get halfway through and then suddenly the rest of the series would disappear. So I I could never really feel like I could enjoy reading single issues because I never felt like I could get the satisfaction of getting all the way through that storyline. So that's why I kind of stopped reading single issues and moved to the trade paperbacks, and when they came out as a published series, is when I started reading them. I'd like to thank Amazon for making so many of these available on Prime Reads, because I'm getting through quite a lot of them, including some that I would never even have thought about reading. So some of the Star Wars comics, I would never have gone anywhere near those, but they were free, and I had some train journeys, so
nice.
That kept me busy reading about Darth Vader's exploits. I'm trying to blot Star Wars from my mind after the announcement of Star Wars Squadrons.
Which we talked about yesterday a little bit.
Yeah. I've still got the vision of that bobblehead Ewok in my brain. It's so cute, but it's going to take me 40 hours of gameplay to get there. Sorry, wrong topic. I'm talking about comics today. So whenever I would feel so inclined, I'd nose in a bookstore and see what their graphic novel section was like. So I've read a couple of the Alien versus Predator novels, setting up some of the backstory for that and some of what happened after Aliens, but then mainly got into reading the Marvel series. But lately, after watching Constantine City of Demons and Apocalypse War, I want to go back and start reading the Hellblazer novels.
Nice.
So that's where I'm going to start next. But I've also got the complete series of the Injustice books to read first.
Nice.
So that's kind of where I am. I've also got Civil War 2 to read, and I picked up in a sale a little while ago before the lockdown, Wolverine: Enemy of the State. So I've got quite a backlog to get through.
That is a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got a mix of paperback and digital is where I am as well. So it's not like you behind you in that closet wardrobe.
Just boxes.
It's just stacks and stacks of comic books in cellophane.
Yeah. All right. So why House of M? Why did you want to do this particular story?
I really like. I particularly like the story. There was a few things in there that I've got a little bit of niggle with. Russ is grinning, so I'm sure he does as well. But it sets up a subsequent storyline that I also really like, which is the Avengers versus X-Men.
Oh, all right, okay.
Which, if you've not read that book, obviously Emmanuel wouldn't, because he had just read the half of it that's the Avengers and then ignored the other half that's the X-Men. Potentially, I don't know.
So the reason that I said yes to having an episode
me on at all,
well,
which you're regretting now.
No, for having you on, I was going to figure out a way to get you on, but the reason I agreed to doing an episode that was just House of M is I've had various periods in my life where I stopped reading or collecting comics. This was one of those periods where I wasn't reading books. And Russ, it was you that brought it to my attention. You said, Matt, what are you doing? Have you not read House of M? And I was like, what the hell is House of M? And so I think this is probably my first introduction to Brian Bendis's work. And also...
he's pretty good. He should write some more.
Right? Yeah. So, Russ, you were just always reading along, right? And you came across House of M?
Yes and no. So, I started as a kid, and I love good stories. I get up early Saturday morning, catch the bus to the movie theater to get some kind of good story to just sort of set my day off. So good stories are always what was amazing, and good escape, because I didn't live in the greatest neighborhood. So and comics were cheap back then, right? Yeah. I remember when, telling my age, still only 35 cents. So for $5,
I thought you were going to say still only 35. You look great.
oh, thank you. I am still 35 in my heart, but uh, for my allowance of $5 a week, I could buy a stack of books that would take me the entire week to read.
Yeah.
And that was amazing to me. So I went every Saturday, got a stack of books, and I was able, and that's sort of how I got through a lot of my childhood and teenage years. When I joined the military, no comics. So I totally was out of it. Whatever cartoons were coming on, I was missing it. So a lot of times in my life where I was out of it and not having access or not having a lifestyle that enabled me to do that. So I kept coming back, getting some things, finding what I missed. And then the digital age came, and then I could get everything in theory that I wanted. And then, of course, because I like reading, it was no problem for me to go to a bookstore, get a latte, pile on 3 or 4 graphic novels, and sit back and read them for free.
Yeah.
So it enabled me to catch up on entire stories. And of course, those things make my day. So now I am still in it. I am not as timely as I would like, but I'm not talking about them at the water cooler. So I lean more towards graphic novels also, or finished stories. But now that all these things are digital and faster and same day delivery, I am able to catch up to the things that interest me and sort of stay in the conversation. And like I said, I get excited by good stories, whether they be in comic form, graphic novel, or just print or even audiobooks. So tell me a good story, however you want to tell me, and you have me.
Can I ask you guys a quick question on that then about digital delivery?
Yes.
Either of you signed up to the Marvel subscription service?
Off and on. So I generally wait for the code. They usually do like a digital promo code, and they don't restrict it to first-time users. So Marvel Unlimited, a lot of times you can pick it up for $5 or $1 for a month, instead of the 10, I think, or 15 or whatever it is that they normally charge. And then
that's too expensive for me.
Yeah, and then every once in a while they'll do a special where you get like an entire year for $50 or $25 or something, and I'll do that. But I don't regularly subscribe because the delay that they're on is like 3 to 6 months depending on what issues it is that you're reading. So stuff that like I would have missed, I'll sign up, get Marvel Unlimited for a month or whatever, catch up on some stuff that I missed or didn't really want to buy, and then I'm out. I'm done with my subscription.
I'm a DC guy, so you'll likely find me there. I am currently subscribed to DC Universe. They are also on a major delay. But prior to all of this stuff in the air, I used to go to Comic Cons.
Yeah.
Times a year, and I go to Comic Cons and dig into crates and come home with boxes of books to read for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
Right. Entire runs, entire series of graphic novels. And I would go Saturday and Sunday, and each day I come home with boxes of books to read. And that sort of carried me through. That looks interesting. Let me just get all of them. Right. Or here we go. Or this guy is like 25% on the price of graphic novels. Let me buy 10 graphic novels.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, my wife is probably very glad that I can't do that.
But in the end, I don't have them anymore. I tend to give them away to people who would appreciate them, or my sisters or teachers. And I sometimes give them books to their kids. And so I don't have any of that mass that I have, but I like to read. And just like if you buy a book at the store, you read it, you can put it in your library, you can give it to someone else who might read it. So I'm more than willing to pass it to someone who actually has interest. So I don't tend to keep them.
Yeah.
And I don't pay full price off it either. So there's that.
Yeah. All right. Shall we get into it, gentlemen?
Why, yes.
All right.
I can prove my level of ignorance about comics.
You know
Isn't
what,
this great?
there's no ignorance. You know, you read it like I read it. You know what you know. That's good enough.
Yeah, we're just gonna kind of run through the story a little bit, talk about different things, namely the artwork and writing. Um, so I'll start. In terms of the artwork, the main series, this is, I guess, typical mid to late 2000s Marvel. It definitely has that feel to it. Um, I like the way that some of the suits are designed, the way that they did some of the suits in this era.
Mhm.
So the superheroes look pretty cool. Um, I don't know that I've followed this particular artist or what they've done since this. But obviously, Bendis has been a huge, one of those names in the biz that just keeps coming back. And this being my first introduction to Bendis, I was kind of blown away. The way that he does character interactions is unlike a lot of other writers, and so I think that that's something that's unique about this series. Even though it does sort of change a lot of the Marvel universe and resets the mutant conversation. Like I was saying, this was sort of post bankruptcy. They had sold off a lot of assets to different movie companies, and they needed something to sort of revamp the comics in that era. And this was one way that they did it. They disassembled the Avengers. They got rid of 85% of the mutants, right? So that was kind of interesting. And then they going into the sort of House of M alternate universe. I guess we should probably talk about that. So the book opens up with Wanda having children. She's giving birth. Obviously,
To her and Vision's twins.
right. So obviously, she can't have children with Vision because he's an android, more or less. And so we immediately tipped off to the fact that following Disassembled, okay, she's clearly crazy. This isn't really happening. But we're slowly led into, oh, maybe her power is much greater than we thought, and she's affecting the entire fabric of reality and is changing things. And this is, or could possibly be happening. I'm going to pass it along as I sort of gather more thoughts and scroll through. And
All right. I like the artist Oliver, and I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Is it Koppel?
I would have said Koipel.
Koipel sounds right. And so I like him. I follow him also because I'm into artists that are not white, and he's one of those artists.
He's done a lot of work for DC as well, because I Googled him when I knew that we were actually going to talk about this.
Yeah, I have an article on him that I wrote for Comic Creators of Color. So I am familiar with his work. Obviously, the House of M is on most people who read X-Men, so they've all seen his art. I like it. It's not the kind of like, oh my God, but I always like the panels.
Yeah.
So I like the art, and especially at that time is actually very distinctive. When they did the close-ups on the face, I like the lines. I'm not always a fan of the proportions, but I still like looking.
Or just looking at Wonder Man.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
It's not that no one looks bad, and it is enough it's pleasing. So that's kind of really what I need. I need to see the action, see the emotion, and it to be pleasing to my sight. So it checks those three boxes. Brian Michael Bendis obviously has done a lot of interesting things since this. I do like, as Matt brought up, the character interactions. I really make note of the fact that you get all these people in the room and the conversation seemed to flow well. right? Like
Yeah.
you were actually watching a drama series, and these people were not just talking because their words on the page, but this is how they might actually interact. These are the stances they might have. These are the ways that they might comment over each other and upon each other. And I felt like every character was very much in alignment with who I have known them to be in the history of those characters, right? No one was, sometimes you get a lot of these books and someone will take some license, not just physically with the character, but make them act totally out of context. I don't feel like that happened here. I felt like everyone, and there's a lot of, you got to figure X-Men is an ensemble cast. There are a lot of characters, let alone the Avengers, right? And I really felt like everyone's voice was genuine or in line with my knowledge or understanding or feeling of the character. So that I liked. Um, Even their alternate versions, given different circumstances, some of them might change, and that was interesting too. Uh, I'll pass it to you, Keith. What do you think?
Um, Going back to the art, I really like the color palette choices.
Mm-hmm.
So if you, for each of the different settings within the overall story arc, there's a slightly different, well, it's not slightly different, it's pretty bloody obvious, but it's well done in a sense that you get a clear transition to where you are in the story from the background color palette. And I think it could have been overplayed. And whilst I said it's obvious, it's quite cleverly done in the sense that it does mean that you can quite quickly tune into.
It's not something that distracts you, is what you're saying.
No, and whilst you get I know you might get the Westchester, New York thing in the top corner, but you could have quite easily seen that without reading that on the panel, because the palette of the color that's being used for that paint is different to the one that you were just looking at previously. And also it shows the transition between tone quite well. So you start off when the shots with the pan of Genosha that's all destroyed, that was meant to be this kind of mutant panacea, which never happened, and it's all crumbling and brown and orange, and then you go to New York and Avengers Tower, bright blue sky, bright blue skyscrapers. It's the juxtaposition I really liked. Picking up on what Russ said, the emotion that Koipel gets in the expression on people's faces is particularly brilliant. So even if you took some of the speech bubbles out, you can tell what emotion the characters are trying to get across, particularly with the interactions. And you get that early on with the interactions between Pietro Maximoff and Magneto.
Yeah.
So shall I just keep going, or do it, Matt?
I wasn't cutting you off. I was just agreeing. Was all.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm used to cutting you off, so I don't know this, since this is your show.
That's fair.
Yeah. Screw this guy. So going back to the storytelling, one thing that this book really grabbed me isn't just the overall story arc, which is also very good and very interesting. The individual character story arcs that Bendis manages to blend through the overall narrative, and then wrap it all up at the end with a little bow and maybe a gold sticker and a couple of candles. It's just very, very clever and very well done. And this is why sometimes people who write for comics don't really get the credit that they should in terms of their narrative storytelling and character development. And this series has a whole heap of character development just crushed into 8 issues.
The one thing I will say, though, that
look at me sounding like I know what I'm talking about.
The one aspect I don't like about his characters is the one character, I can't remember what her name is, like Kylie or the little girl that
Kayla.
is it
Is Kayla?
Lila.
Lila. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what it is. I don't particularly like her. She does become a little more prominent in the comics later, but it was clear that Bendis was like, "Well, I just need somebody in here to like be the bridge between realities." So she's a total plot device. That's like her only function. You know.
Well, it was quite when you get into that. So, for people who don't know, spoilers. So the Wanda Maximoff has lost her mind, and she's isolated on Genosha with her brother and dad. She is having visions that her and the Vision, are married, and she's given birth to their twins. Charles Xavier is there trying to help her because she's losing her grip on reality, and they realize how dangerous that could be for not just her, but for everyone, as comes to pass later on. And so Charles Xavier calls the Avengers together and invites the X-Men to Avengers Tower and have a bit of a powwow about what do we do with Wanda Maximoff. And Wolverine is saying we might have to top her because,
killer.
I don't think he says might.
Yeah. he and this is quite an interesting interaction because the paragon of virtue that is Captain America is that there's always an alternative, there's always another way. When Wanda Maximoff changes reality, he becomes a big fat old man because he never got frozen in the ice and people forgot who he was and he got old. So it was quite an interesting interaction between Wolverine and Spider-Man though, where Spider-Man says, so if I just wig out, you're going to kill me? It's like, yeah. I'd hope you do the same to me. So then there's a decision which is quite possibly one of the most dumb decisions in the history of dumb decisions, which is all of them decide to go to Genosha, which would be like, I don't know, the US Marine Corps showing up to talk to the president of Cuba. So that's not going to be antagonistic or come across as being slightly forceful in any way. Yeah. So it could have just been, I don't know, Charles Xavier and Doctor Strange, who have both been trying to help Wanda Maximoff. No, the entire Avengers and all of the X-Men available.
Okay. I agree with you 100%. But it's one of those things where if you're going somewhere and your wife wants to go, you can't say no. And if your wife has emotional something about this, you can't say no. If Spider-Man wants to come, he is an Avenger. You can't say no. And everyone here has some emotion behind it. And then we don't have strong put the hammer down leadership because the Avengers have disbanded, right?
Yeah.
So they're really more a collection of friends. And because they're a collection of friends and no one is really taking leadership, they all just go because mom mentality is stupid.
Well, I think it boiled down to the X-Men wanted to go because she's a mutant and the daughter of Magneto, and the Avengers saying no, she's an Avenger, so we should come too. We're not just going to let you kill her. So it ended up everyone going, and that turned out really well.
I seem to recall. I don't know if it. I guess it's in Avengers Disassembled in the end where Xavier's like, "There's no way to fix her. Like I can't do anything with her mind."
It's in this as well, and Doctor Strange weighs in and says he's tried because he realizes what an existential threat she is, not just to this reality, but all realities.
So, I mean, that sort of plays into the ultimatum of, well, if the most powerful telepath in the Marvel Universe can't do anything about Wanda, he can't go in and save her, then what other decision do we have?
Yes. What's on the table? So let's put Keith in charge of the decision. We're at Avengers Tower, the rest of the Avengers. Wonder Keith is there, one of the mightiest of them all. Some sense into them before they embark on this foolish journey. What is on the table? What should we do? Assume that we have all the power of the Marvel universe at our fingertips. So whatever has happened before in a Marvel comic book could possibly happen here. How do we move forward? I can go back to the Phoenix saga and say something similar when you the death of the Phoenix. What is really on the table? What should be on the table? Let's say the three of us are making that decision.
Well, right? we get Mr. Ignored standing in the background over here. Sorry, wrong side. Sentinel to go and just dive bomb on Genosha and blow up the bloody island.
So murder.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Clearly okay. So we know where you stand. Matt, where do you stand on this conversation? Solve it. Lead us.
I mean, if you can't fix...
You can't let Keith Barine, McWomble. I like that one a little better. I don't know.
if you can't fix her, there's really no other option. Other than...
I'll use an analogy. What is one of the best ways to disarm a bomb?
Don't make it.
Blowing it up.
Blowing it up. Okay.
Yeah.
So may I offer another suggestion?
Yes.
Obviously, you guys are not, because you can't think of one, you think there can't be one. What if we just...
There's always another way. Russ is actually Captain America.
Put her on her own planet.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, you could seclude her in like Asteroid Island or something.
But then that might not work because she can affect all reality.
Yeah, but I think her reality is localized. I think this reality is
to the size of a planet.
I don't think, yes. So I think you put her on her own planet. Think about the Beyonder, right? I don't know, Keith, if you're with Secret Wars.
Yeah.
Okay. So all that reality happened on that planet, and whatever, let it happen, right?
Okay. So what you're saying is Doctor Strange screwed up because he could have put her on. He could have transported her to another planet or even some kind of pocket dimension and just let her live her life peacefully in her own crazy mind.
Yes.
Not running any risk that she might realize that she's in a pocket dimension or that she can affect all space and time.
Yes.
And so you just take the risk of that. You take the risk then, but then if that doesn't work, you come back to Matt and I murdering her.
Look, I'm not giving you okay, if this doesn't work, we get to kill her. No, I'm telling you, this is the solution. This is the solution that doesn't make us murderers.
Yeah, well,
I know, Wolverine, that you are willing to murder for the sake of humanity because you care so much. And I know, man, you don't want to think bigger. You just think, well, it's obvious, this is it. And I know, for example, I had a conversation with a friend of mine that says, why don't, we got all these issues in America right now. Why don't they just do this? Why don't they do that?
Destroy the country.
Yeah. And I says, the reason why you don't get to make that fucking decision is because you're not smart enough. And you think that because the answer has to be at a level you handle. We pay 6- and 7-figure people to make those decisions that we cannot, to find fucking solutions that are not within our wheelhouse. I want them to do that, right? That's one of the reasons why I have that. So because it makes sense to me, it's not good enough. It's going to have to be a bigger picture conversation. So, and I'm sorry I'm getting a little emotional here, but this is where I go. When you put this, we need to find a better way. It is our job to. And if you cannot step the fuck down and elevate someone who can and will, right?
Shall I leave the show now?
And the best you can think of is murder. You can't lead me, right? Right? And I'm not saying, and I am not saying your point is invalid because it's not invalid. It should be on the table. Just like beating your kids should be on the table. Does it mean you should always beat your kids? No, but we should at least put it into consideration and have a conversation. Right?
The deterrent should be there. I was just trying to help Sentinel out because he's basically been forgotten through this entire series.
Can fly her to an actual planet in this dimension, right, at super cosmic speed, wrap her in his cloak, take her there, and Sentinel is actually immune to a lot of these things, including mental powers and things like that. So should something happen on the way, Sentinel can fucking handle it. You take him there, you take her to this planet, predetermined planet, you set her there, Sentinel can build her a nice house with super speed and then she can be in that house. She can wake up because we can put her to sleep because we've been doing that already, right?
Yeah.
We can't put her to sleep. We put her to sleep. We take her there at super speed. She wakes up in that house alone and she thinks, no, I'm not alone. And the entire world is hers again. And she creates a whole new earth with everybody that she loves and everything is there. And she's fucking happy and nobody's a fucking murderer. And we don't let Wolverine lead anymore.
All right,
okay, that's my solution.
So that,
right.
That's a very different storyline.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so that doesn't happen. She does lose her mind before they could do anything.
So, but we don't understand what the thing is that what happens is we don't understand what the intention was. There's no decision.
We never get to
the whole point was we need to go and talk to her, but we don't understand what has happened on Genosha before the time that the Avengers leave. They land and they go to talk to her, mob-handed, which wouldn't come across as being threatening at all. And then everything kind of glows white, and Peter Parker wakes up in bed with Gwen Stacy, who's dead.
Not anymore.
And this is
not anymore.
And this is a very different Peter Parker, right?
He's got an earring.
Well, but
he's got an earring. Oh Christ, how different can it be?
His uncle hasn't been murdered. He's a star. He's living the life that I am a mutant. I'm not going to tell anybody that I was bitten by a radioactive spider, right?
Well, this is the point. So what has happened is mutants are now the dominant sapien species on the planet. Homo superior.
Regular people.
Yeah. Dazzler is a reality TV host. Good for her. It's everything she ever wanted. Captain Marvel is kind of allowed to carry on being a cosmic police officer.
Yeah.
Beats the shit out of a Gambit. That guy is going to have some serious back surgery after the beating she gave him. He's not going to be thieving anything for a long time. The island of Manhattan is being circled by what would have been the SHIELD helicarrier, but is now kind of head of mutant control. And I couldn't tell. I can't remember. I think I've forgotten a bit, but I don't think it's not being run by SHIELD, and it might even be run by Forge.
I think it's still
SHIELD.
It's still SHIELD, but it's
changed.
Yeah, it's like the SHIELD Red Guard or something like that.
Yeah. So that's where we're in issue 2 now. So Wolverine wakes up after just having some.
I don't see the problem. What she did was give everyone who she loved everything they ever wanted. What is the fucking problem? Why isn't that good enough?
Well, Wolverine. Why is it always Wolverine, poor bastard? So Wolverine wakes up and he seems to be the only person who actually remembers what had happened up to this point. Freaks out Raven Darkholm, who's part of the Red Guard with him. He's the leader of the Red Guard. He does something ultimately badass and jumps off the helicarrier over the island of Manhattan and grabs onto the side of a skyscraper with his bare hands. I mean, he's just a legend.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes off in search of the other Avengers to try and find out what the hell's going on. Doesn't turn out too well. He goes and tries to find Charles Xavier, goes to the school, scares the crap out of some guy who's just asleep, and eventually gets hunted down by the Red Guard and has to escape. And he gets picked up by... Oh, sorry, missing something. So Hank Pym is no longer... he's working with Dr. McCoy, who's no longer blue. He's in his skin form rather than his furry form. But he says something in this which is I took umbrage with. I didn't notice it the first time around that when I read the book, but I noticed it second time round, and I noticed it again now, where he's talking about Iron Man being potentially in a tricky situation, and they suspect that he's looking for some kind of gene therapy to suppress the mutant gene.
Right.
And Hank McCoy refers to that as reverse racism, which it isn't. It's just racism. If you are discriminating or abusing someone on the grounds of their ethnicity or their species, that is racism. It's regardless of what your or their ethnicity or race or gender or whatever. It's just racism. Sexism is sexism, no matter if it's a man or a woman. So I took umbrage with that statement. And Hank McCoy, being the smart man that he is, should know that.
Yeah, but you're talking pure logic when there's an emotional aspect to the whole race conversation that most people, even the smart ones, can't disabuse themselves of. You're sort of caught up in the reality of it, and you get swept up into it, and people have feelings. So while I think what he was really communicating was that you just got to accept this is how it is now, and you can thrive here, and you should let that go. But I do agree with you and your point, the whole reverse. As soon as I hear someone say reverse racism, I say, well, stop the racism in the first place. There's nothing to reverse. So I am in agreement with that conversation.
So as Wolverine is steal someone's motorcycle, terribly sorry. He wouldn't get very far on a bike. He sees a copy of a newspaper which has got Magneto's face on it, talking about the House of Magnus Day. So Wolverine loses his shit and tries to go in search of some other Avengers. He stumbles across Cloak, who takes him to a resistance hideout, which is headed up by Luke Cage. Mm-hmm. Now, Luke Cage is some kind of underground gangster in this reality.
Yes.
And Sam Wilson is a homicide detective.
Yes.
And the first instance we see of Sam Wilson is him questioning Luke Cage over the murder of the Kingpin.
Yeah.
So that's kind of setting about how different the world is at a kind of quite superficial level compared to the overarching element of the story. And at the end of issue 2, Wolverine has a arrow pointed at his head by Hawkeye.
Yep.
Who he knows is dead in the real reality. So this is coming back to Russ, your points. If reality is reality, what's the real one?
Okay. Well, I can answer that question, but hold on. My thing is loading. I don't want it to interfere with my. Okay. So the answer to that is the real reality is the one you're in. The one you're in right now. There is no reality prime that all realities are derivatives of. The real reality is the one that is the one that you are in. And I can also even split more hairs and say your reality, the one you believe in, is not even necessarily the one that's the real one anyway, right? It is how you see the world. So there is no reality. So if we rebooted all of that, if we rebooted this and this was the new world, then it's the reality, right?
Yeah.
I don't believe in the right reality. I believe this is what you have. This is what it is. Change it, make it better. Change it to something you knew, but it doesn't make it right or wrong. Still, though, I feel like, okay, so do you have an explanation? I'll go to you, Matt. Why is it that Wolverine remembered? Wolverine doesn't have mental powers. What's your take?
No, yeah, I was going to bring that up. I think...
plot device.
Yeah, I was going to say there's something to do with Layla. I don't know.
No, yeah. he doesn't meet Layla until he gets to Luke Cage's.
So I have the answer. I just thought, Matt, you might have one or invent one.
No, I don't have the answer. Why does he
Okay.
remember?
Okay, so Wolverine in all his history has always had his memories fucked with. Yes?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Right? So over and over again. So it makes sense that he might have some over time resistance to memory change.
Oh, I see. So
But that
it's
his healing factor over time begins the ability to heal even his memories. Because
okay.
if we go to the very end, we see that another fucked with thing brings all of it back. So I think that what happened is, plot device or no, that his body was always in the process of healing his memories.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
And
Oh, so
so,
very slowly, his healing factor was healing his brain cells, reconnecting those cells.
and so because you did a drastic change to it instantly, he obviously it probably went through in his dreams while he was asleep, but there was some fight against that from his natural healing factor that also works on his brain, right?
Yeah.
And he can see a difference. His mind can see something scarred over this or cut through this, and I'm just going to heal this shit right the fuck now. So that's my logic for that. I have an explanation for Lila, whatever her name is, too, unless you have one. But go ahead.
Well, no, I was gonna say it's kind of interesting because I never really thought about that, and it puts a interesting limitation on Wanda's powers, right? So if she's altering reality,
Mm-hmm.
it has to, there's like a barrier.
Okay, I'm gonna add another dimension to that. This came from the books.
That's
So
there's the right word for you. I'm going to add another dimension.
Remember how they said the possibility of Wanda usurped Xavier's power to help make this change?
Yeah.
So what if her reality as you see it was one thing, but changing the minds required her to usurp Professor Xavier's abilities? And Professor Xavier's abilities are limited. And Professor Xavier has always had limitation with dealing with Wolverine's memories. So if there's an aspect that happened is that Professor Xavier was used in this process, it makes sense that it didn't pull all the way through on Wolverine.
Can we try and poke a hole in?
And in
That's
all
a
of
no.
his books and all of this series, Professor Xavier is nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He's
Because there's some discussion about has Wanda did she try and destroy Charles Xavier, and somehow either she chose not to for whatever reason, or he tried to protect himself, and now Layla is actually Charles Xavier?
No, there's a whole other conversation on Layla.
Yeah.
But that's what some of the characters believe, but that's not actually what transpires.
Are you familiar with Layla and why she is that way?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this came up way later, and this is a spoiler. So hit pause. I'm on the thumbs up now. When I hold the thumbs up again, you can unpause. Okay. So pause now. Pause now. Here's Layla's story. Layla, in the future, in the far future, knows everything that's going to happen because she lived it. So what happened in the future is she sent all of the knowledge of everything she knew that would happen back to her younger self, so that that younger self would be able to make better decisions, right? To be able to, right? So this younger self doesn't necessarily have a mutant power of memory, but has the knowledge built into her of everything that happens. So even though you change reality over it, since her memory comes from some other out of dimension, out of time place, has been implanted into her, it didn't change. Her current memory of how things work is different, but where she gets this awareness.
So Wanda Maximoff messed with the fabric of reality, but she didn't mess with the timeline within which Lila was living.
Yes, another dimension.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah, okay, I'm with you.
All right. So thumbs up. We can come back. That's why Layla knows stuff. And if you follow her in what is that? What is that mutant detective agency she's in with Matrox? What is that group or that comic called?
It's just another X Factor comic, I think.
Yeah, it's another X Factor comic. So if you follow her and X Factor, if you want to know more about that character, it is an interesting arc ongoing in that book. You could find out more about Layla if you follow X Factor.
I feel like the X Factor Special Investigations or whatever it was a book that spawned directly out of this special event. So,
very likely. And then Layla was part of it. So there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, did I explain everything? Give me another MacGuffin and I will explain that. They don't let me run the earth though.
The thing that I've
and let him choose, and that's what happens.
So in following going forward in the story, I'm still confused as to why Doctor Strange messed up so royally. Does he have to hand back the Eye of Agamotto now?
No.
Say,
Russ,
sorry guys.
Russ would just say that he's incredibly irresponsible and always will be.
Yes, he's Tony Stark of magic, dude.
Yeah. He does get his comeuppance in this. So he goes from being the sorcerer supreme to being a psychiatrist.
With Fu Manchu mustache.
Yeah. So now that everyone who was in the room with Luke Cage and Wolverine knows what the hell's going on, they start trying to find some of the X-Men. So they go and find Emma Frost and Cyclops. Then just in the street, they find Peter Parker and his family and give him all of his memories back from the real alternate, not reality. Right. How bloody selfish. He's with his wife and kids and his aunt and uncle. Just in the middle of the street, you rock up.
Look, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. You know this. This isn't new. We need Spider-Man and every hand on deck to beat someone who can change reality. We do. Yeah. So, sorry, homie. Your dream, no.
Which sucks.
It wasn't real anyway.
Which really sucks for Peter Parker because he has such a much better life in this reality, I feel like.
Look, Peter Parker's life must suck, okay? It is a fundamental part of Marvel Universe reality. Peter Parker must always be broke. Peter Parker must always have problems. Peter Parker can never be sustainably successful or sustainably happy. It is not possible. It is why Spider-Man who is who he is. Tell me how it has ever stuck that he has ever sustained happiness, ever, in the history of Peter Parkerness.
Are you saying he's somehow doing it to himself? He's actually forcing himself to be unhappy because that's what he really wants.
It's written on his scorecard in the cosmic Marvel universe.
Right.
Peter Parker's life sucks. That's just what it is. He fights with crime. He's going to go to heaven if there is one. He's going to go, right? And maybe he can have all the love he wants there. But on this earth, he must have a sucky life, no matter how good or how he can have moments of joy because we got to keep him moving forward. We can't have him in despair. But we do have to take everything from him from time to time and then give a little bit of it back.
Yeah. Well, this comic book seriously does take a lot from him. Yeah. I mean, there's slightly more than a pound of flesh.
It'll be all right.
Yeah, he nearly smashes Tony Stark's stone table at the end of the book because he wants Doctor Strange to change everything back to how it was when he was happy, and not deal with the pain of losing Gwen Stacy twice and Uncle Ben twice.
Yeah.
Then he needs to just put him, when you send her to the other planet,
just send Peter Parker with us.
Just send him with her. Sentinel, you got room for two under your cloak. Right, so moving swiftly on, there's going to be this party for the House of Magnus and Namor and the Black Panther and Aurora, who's not Storm in this. She's just called a Queen.
Queen of Kenya.
Queen of Kenya.
I don't know how she got to Kenya and how she became Kenyan, but whatever. I do have a question. What does the M in House of M stand for?
Magnus.
It's not mutants. It's not anything else.
No,
it's just, so the title of this book is The House of Magnus.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Please continue.
Because it's Wanda giving her father what he wanted, which is mutant supremacy under his rule.
Yeah.
The Sentinels look pretty gaudy. They look like something out of. They look like a costume you'd see in Apex Legends.
I don't know why they gave him Sentinels or why he has Sentinels to control in this reality.
Humans to control humans.
No, I know, but I don't know. It strikes me as like he would have. I feel like he would have different means of controlling humans.
Humans are humans. Mutants are humans too. You know what I'm saying? In a reality, humans are fucking bad, and bad policing is, everywhere. And so in the Marvel universe, there will be Sentinels no matter who's in charge.
Okay.
So the Avengers and the X-Men, the ones who've got their memories back. Hawkeye's pissed off, by the way. He got upset after finding out that he was dead. Frankly, he should just get over it. So, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, he's not Peter Parker.
I think that would be hard. If everything goes back to normal, he's dead again.
But he's not.
Well, I mean, from that vantage point,
from his perspective, yeah.
So enough reason to be pissed. Like, I gotta have myself destroyed.
Yeah, by one of his friends as well. So he was killed by someone he thought was a trusted friend. And they go an all-out assault on Genosha, trying to keep Magneto occupied. They believe that this was all Magneto's doing. So Magnus has convinced his crazy daughter to change everything so that he is the supreme being on planet Earth.
Right.
Yes. Makes sense.
Past behavior, you'd probably think you were right.
Yeah, I would.
Maybe you're not. So I really like some of the quiet moments in this. So in this section of the storyline, you've got this massive battle going on outside, which is in certain pages it's just referred to. So you don't know what's happening, if people are dying. But there's two quiet moments. One is where Emma Frost discovers the memorial to Charles Xavier, and Cloak finds out that Charles Xavier isn't there. There's no coffin, there's no body, there's nothing. It's just a memorial. And the other one is Doctor Strange's conversation with Wanda Maximoff and her two real/not real kids. So it's that there's a big battle going on outside, but you've got these two very quiet, very calm conversations happening alongside that, and I like that.
Just
dissonance.
He's not going to let anything interfere with her kids. This started with her kids, right? That she could have. That's how the whole thing started. So whatever's going on out there in the world, you're not going to have it interfere with her babies.
Yeah.
So Hawkeye on his revenge mission shows up in Wanda Maximoff's bedroom, and not just murdered, he gets kind of erased from existence. So it's very artistically done. It's almost as if his body's being disassembled in a similar way as if it wasn't going to dust, but more kind of square particles. In the Infinity War and Endgame, where people snap their fingers and people turn to dust.
Yeah.
But wasn't the Avengers before this disassembled? Wasn't that even the name of the book?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was disassembled. So, do you know what? I didn't even get that. Thank you very much. And then Pietro Maximoff goes and beats some people up, But where is it that she realizes?
I think it's toward...
So towards the end, they actually realize that it wasn't anything to do with Magneto, and it was actually Quicksilver who convinces his sister to create this reality, because he is trying to protect her from
being murdered.
The Avengers, the X-Men, but also their father, as he's always done their entire lives. So he was trying to be her protector still, but caused a significant amount of damage in the process.
What's the damage? He gave everybody what they wanted. What's this damage you speak of?
Have you seen the panels?
Yeah, but I mean, hey, he didn't cause all this damage. The people, I gave everybody what they wanted, and how did they react to what they wanted? They caused damage. Right? Don't blame me because I gave you what you wanted and you couldn't freaking handle it. And then you want to kill people and take down a mountain and destroy people because you have everything you want? You know what I say to that? No more mutants.
Oh, there you go. So there's the plot device that links into the Avengers versus X-Men storyline and the importance of hope, not just the feeling, the actual character. Because Wanda Maximoff gets pissed off with everything that's going on, and she sees the mutants as causing these problems, and it was them who wanted to kill her in the first place. It was them who were who forced her into isolation. It was them who didn't want to help her when the Avengers did. So she says, "No more mutants," and all of a sudden,
reality
hundreds of thousands of mutants lose the mutant powers. The mutant gene that they had is gone instantaneously. But not all of the ones who were in this fight. They seem to be most of the ones that were still protected from it in this kind of reality bubble.
Yeah. And so this is a little bit different to the beginning of the story because this is universe changing, right? Her statement of no more mutants affects the Marvel universe going forward.
Yeah, it does. So previously this was just that in this reality.
Yeah.
Which Russ would argue is the only reality. Or has argued eloquently, by the way. He's getting bored with us. He's looking up stuff online now.
I'm reading through the book to have more ammunition to combat your foolish claims.
So, yeah, but but this actually affects the entire Marvel universe.
Yeah, and so we're at...
Be careful what you wish for. If you want to kill someone, you don't know, she might just wish all of your progeny out of existence.
Yes. Once you decide to take up murder, you got to realize that there is something bigger than that can harm you. You may think it's okay and justifiable, but once you choose that path, once you elevate it to murder, don't think that there isn't something that is so worse that is beyond your perception that can come down upon you. So I always think that should be the last thing on the table, and that you are actually willing to give up everything, not just yourself, but everyone you love behind a decision to murder someone. Because if I think about it, if someone comes after my family, you think I'm going just an eye for an eye?
Okay, this just got really dark.
Entire gene pool.
Russ, I promise I will never try and murder anyone unless they deserve it.
You didn't even change anything with that statement.
No, I just added a qualifier.
Right?
So towards the end of the book, the X-Men are hunting Wanda Maximoff. She's disappeared. Quicksilver's disappeared. Mm-hmm. So they head back to Genosha and find Magneto-less. Because Magnus has lost his mutant powers along with the other mutants. He is no longer Magneto. So Wolverine takes great pleasure in threatening him. But then,
as murderers do.
yeah, but then he doesn't murder him. You think of all the horrible shit that Magneto's done to Wolverine over the years. I mean, ripping the adamantium from his skeleton through his skin.
Yeah, which was a great storyline.
And he just leaves him there to be the
Kill him though.
sapien that he despises.
Yes.
Fate worse than death. Being lesser than you believe.
So if you do try to murder someone, then there is something that is worse that can be visited upon you. Yes, I agree.
And then the book ends and everyone goes home, lives happily ever after, except Peter Parker.
What's the big shadow over the earth?
Well, this is the bit at the end I found quite confusing because I don't know what directly follows this series. I mean,
I don't know either.
I get the next.
So you've got Hank Pym talking on a TV show talking about Newton's third law of thermodynamics. So where has all of this energy from all of these mutants who've had their mutant powers taken away from them? Where has that energy gone to? It must have gone somewhere.
Well, if Magneto's powers are gone and Xavier is nowhere to be found, maybe it's Onslaught.
Could be.
Yeah.
Because that would make sense, right? I don't know the answer because I don't know what comes after this. That's going to require me to go find all the books that came out at that time and those.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't remember what directly follows this, but I think the next major story arc for the X-Men was Messiah Complex. So there's something that bridges this with Messiah Complex in that they do, some mutants do still have their powers, and there's a reemergence of the X gene, and mutants are coming back. And
is that with Hope?
Yeah, and Hope plays a role in that. And then Messiah Complex goes into Messiah War, which Cable is protecting Hope, and so those two stories are actually pretty interesting. If you wanted to follow up House of M, I would recommend. And those are trades or graphic novels that you can get.
They said Messiah Complex went from October 2007 to January 2008, so it sounds like it was pretty soon after.
Yeah, it was like the next year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're my next two that I need to read, and I think they're available on Amazon Prime.
They might be, yeah.
Do you think that if Emmanuel watches this, we would have convinced him to read this book?
No.
No, because he is committed. Committed exists beyond reality. If you've decided that you cannot be changed, you cannot be changed. That becomes your reality. If you are open, then there's a possibility. I don't think he's open.
He's open to Ultimate X-Men.
Yes. Yes, he's open to that finite universe that existed for a certain amount of time and will never return.
So in the overall sort of all the X-Men stories that are out there, in terms of like the big events or connecting books and larger stories, I would put House of M definitely in the top 5. I don't know where in the top 5 it sits though, because I feel like the Dark Phoenix saga, that's always going to be classic, top of the list.
Yes.
House of M is like a close second or third.
Mm-hmm. What else do you even have in the 5? When you're talking X-Men specifically, because I could go Secret Wars, but that's not just X-Men.
Yeah, no, I'm talking X-Men specifically. Although this is technically an X-Men Avengers crossover.
Yeah. I could also say the House of X, Powers of X has made it into the top 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely a must read.
So yeah, Keith, after you're done with Messiah Complex, Messiah War, you've read Avengers versus X-Men, so you know that one.
There's X-Men Schism I really liked as well.
Okay.
I think that was after Messiah War, so that was towards the.
There's a quality fight between Cyclops and Wolverine, and also I like the I can't remember the kids. They take over the Hellfire Club.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one of them has invented a suitcase sentinel.
I do vaguely remember that. I have to go back and read it.
Yeah, so this is that's another book that I really enjoyed. Yeah, but this sentinel is just ripping metal and computer components from everything around it, whilst Wolverine and Cyclops are trying to kill each other on a beach. So yeah, that's the panels on that are really interesting because you've got Cyclops melting Wolverine's face, and in the background is just this giant sentinel getting larger and larger.
Nice.
You know, there's an issue I have with all of that. All these big world building events in the X-Men, no Avengers. No Avengers anywhere around calling what the fuck's going on over there. Do we have to come down and kick your ass? Right? Nothing. It's like they in a whole nother universe. And then all of a sudden the Phoenix come back. Oh, we need to come in and have war. You need to give us Phoenix now. Now you didn't say that shit like Phoenix is ours. You didn't say that shit when you gave us going back to this book. When your Wanda Maximoff took all mutants, where the fuck were you then? Now you want to come in and say Phoenix belongs to you. Fuck that. Right? You ain't got no telepaths, so we can change all your minds and make you mush right the fuck now. Right?
Yeah, and this, which is why I liked Avengers versus X-Men.
Wasn't there Avengers versus X-Men also?
No, I don't believe so.
No, it was
There was
just,
there was a series.
coming?
There was a series that followed that that was A plus X. Yeah.
Which it's one of the only times where Captain America, being the paragon of virtue that he is, just gets schooled by Cyclops. Cyclops just rips him a new one, just along those lines. Like, where the fuck were you when all this shit was going on?
Let me ask you a question: is Captain America smart?
Oh, that's a good...
Well, do you have to be smart to be a paragon of virtue?
No, you don't. In fact, you actually can't be.
No.
That's my thought. think about the Marvel's Illuminati.
Right.
Right? The people who actually going to make decisions over what's best for all of humanity and the planet. That's not a place Captain America should be. Am I right?
I know, maybe they might have made some smart decisions in the past.
I'm just saying, who should make the decisions? Think of all the people. You got Professor Xavier. You got the smartest man in Reed Richards. You got
Iron Man, Black Panther.
Yeah, the only person missing is Dr. Doom. I think he should have been there.
Well, Doctor Doom probably should have been there. Doctor Strange shouldn't, because as we know from you, he's too irresponsible. So you've got two irresponsible people.
Yeah, but it's also you got to keep him close. He got access to too much power. He's got Phoenix level power in his own way, right?
Yeah.
So we need to at least make sure he is operating in alignment with our plans. Don't ever let me go evil, by the way, gentlemen. It's a done deal.
So what you're saying is we should have plans to disable you in some way, but not kill you?
Oh, you can do whatever you want to do. It's inconsequential to my plans.
Overall,
you can have your little machinations all you want. And when you come to my door, I'm already going to know you're coming, and I'll be prepared for that. And walking through my door could already show the destruction of your loved ones just by walking in. Know that I'm already willing to operate that way, and it's not even personal.
What if you invite me?
Yeah, if you can manipulate a way to have me invite you, good luck with that. I don't know if you operate at that level, but feel free.
I'll bring free barbecue.
I'm gonna go Dr. Doom on this. How does your visit to Latveria benefit Latveria?
I'll bring you barbecued lamb.
Oh yeah, you can send that to mail. And by the way, our beasts are much tastier on the island of Latveria, so we need not your barbecued lamb. So I do appreciate the tiniest of, it's not even worth, I mean, I could fly into your country because you got an open policy and have all the lamb I want and ship it all off to my thing. And I could do that anyway. What do you bring? What do you bring to the great nation of Rusvaria? Of Walrusburg, if you will.
The capital of Rusvaria, Walrusburg. I don't know if I should be personally concerned or concerned for the planet.
Well, you're in no danger. I had nothing. You are no threat to me. So why would you need? There's no danger you need to be concerned with.
Is this the ant and boot conversation?
This is however you wish to name it.
Yeah. Which was actually for those who've just watched the films and haven't read the comic book series, it was actually the builders who said that to Thor. So not Loki to Nick Fury.
I'm curious. This is going to take the conversation in a totally different direction.
Excellent.
Yeah, because it was really well structured already.
Do you think they could do the House of M story in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
I think they could, and this is why the ulterior motive for wanting to talk about this as well, because of the tease for WandaVision.
Yeah.
Only if it's a trilogy.
You think House of M would have to be a trilogy unto itself?
Yes, you can have a pre-House of M, you can have a House of M, and then you can hear the topple of House of M.
Okay.
That ends in No More Mutants, which sets off the next 10 years.
Yeah. So
think of it as X-Men 1, 2, and 3. House of M Prime, or let's have Wanda mess up the Avengers in an Avengers movie, right? Then you start your X-Men trilogy, right? You bring the X-Men in, right? And then something happens, and then at the end of the other movie, everybody wakes up and it's a different reality. And you have to see the next movie after that, right? And so you go see that next movie, and it's House of M proper, where Wolverine is going through whatever and finding out what everybody is up to, and you see that, and it's interesting, right? And then he, at the end, wakes up somebody or starts the waking up process, right? And then some time has passed, and in the final movie, we must topple House of M, which ends in No More Mutants, which sets up the next phase 6 or whatever the hell.
Kevin Feige, if you're watching this, Ross has just given you some gems.
Right.
Stories, man. Stories.
You can send the checks to P.O. Box.
Corner Comics Official.
Right.
I think it would be a really interesting, because the MCU has set up these big kind of world-shattering events.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this could quite easily form one of them, and you could build up to it like Ross was explaining, that I'm not going to repeat. And then you've got your shoehorning in of. So as I was listening to something. Oh Christ, what was I listening to? It was a podcast that didn't feature either of you two. I know I must have been on a bad day. And they were saying, how do you integrate the X-Men now that Disney have bought Fox? How do you integrate them into the MCU? Because you can't do it in the next series of movies. So you're looking at the ones after this series.
Yeah.
So here's what happens. Each of these movies that are coming out is going to introduce someone from the X-Men universe. Maybe they're not going to be the main person, right? So when you get past this next series and Wanda does what she does or might do, whatever, you will already have standardized certain characters and that there is an X-Men universe, so that when you do have the X-Men movie proper, you can bring people that already showed up in these other movies and the fans have familiarization.
Yeah.
Right? And then they already see how they're integrated in, and then you have an X-Men movie proper. And maybe This is something that happens phase 9. Maybe it's just the X-Men, we go classic, not Dark Phoenix. Did they have anything before the death of Phoenix that was big? You're an X-Men guy in the history, Matt. What was big
Um,
in uh, that was, but it wasn't Dark Phoenix. Was there anything?
no. I want to say Days of Future Past, but that was either around the same time or right after.
Okay, but we don't have to.
And but they did that very badly.
Yeah,
Well,
but remember,
yeah.
we have to establish X-Men before we change their reality, right? We
Yeah.
have to get used to the current reality. So we need a story in this reality. And maybe we'll create an all new one, right? I'm open to that. But we need a story an X-Men story that is in this reality that the Avengers have to be part of or aware of or connected to, at least tangentially.
It is always possible that they'll just eschew all that stuff and go with Hickman's House of X, Powers of X, and just sort of start from there and build that into the MCU.
They could do it House of X. Well, they could very much do that.
Yeah.
That could work. I would hate to see all of that other stories not be used.
True.
That would hurt a little bit.
Well,
there's a lot of story there.
You could probably fold in other stuff from the past, but using that as a springboard to get all this into
I hope they don't revisit the Phoenix Saga. I hope they don't revisit Days of Futures Past, because it's already been done badly and it's already been tainted. I know they could do it better, but I think they'd be better off just saying, Fox, fuck that. We're terribly sorry. We're going to do something totally different that's actually quite good.
Yeah.
Does anyone mind? No, thanks, bye.
Let me throw this at you. Let's not use the original X-Men to find the first 5. Let's do that X-Men book where the X-Men got revamped and Cyclops needed a bunch of new X-Men to help save the original X-Men. Remember that? Where they introduced Colossus. They introduced Storm. They introduced Thunderbird.
Yeah, that was when right before Chris Claremont took over. The all new, all different X-Men was.
We can start with them, which would require them to pay homage to the previous X-Men that we know and love.
Yeah.
But also introduce, by the way, Thunderbird kind of should be important anyway. But introduce and give them some magnitude and something that's big. They would say that they already did exist and they've been gone, and maybe that's another reason they were gone. And Xavier calls forth these new X-Men that we do already know, but are still relatively new to the X-Men conversation, not so youthful and 13-year-olds like they did before.
Right.
Then they have that, and that can become your new X-Men 1. Pays homage to the original. We can still bring back an X Factor if we want, right?
Yeah.
But moving forward, we don't need to even have Jean Grey, right? We can just have that group of mutants, and we can bring in Jean Grey later, but maybe we need people to heal from that Jean Greyness keeps dying and shit. I know she's the people, but damn, right?
Yeah.
So that would be that my guess would be that would be the movie. They first encounter Krakoa, which, by the way, the Krakoa becomes important later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So having an X-Men movie that pays homage to the original, that has the new X-Men and have Krakoa, plants all the seeds.
That could work. Yeah, that could very well work.
I know Feige's not listening to me, but
I'm gonna shoot this. I'm gonna shoot this episode to his inbox. Just this clip right here.
Just this clip.
All right, so gentlemen, that was an awesome discussion on House of M and X-Men in general.
Definitely.
Keith, thank you for joining us and filling in that third seat.
Thank you for allowing me on.
Definitely. Before we take off, gentlemen, where can everybody find you on the interwebs?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Walrus. That's at WALLRUSS. And you can also find me at blacksuperherofan.com.
Keith?
Follow me on Twitter at Keith_McWomble, or follow what Matt and I do on our other stuff where we talk about beer and video games, which is Pixel_Pints on Twitter, or follow us on our Instagram page, which is Pixel Pints Pod on Instagram, where we mainly post pictures of cans of beer, which seem to get more views than whenever we talk about games.
Hopefully that'll change.
But just to say, Matt and I are the two Last of Us intolerant people in the group. Everyone else we know is sucking on the naughty dog teats, drinking all of that sweet milk from The Last of Us Part 2.
Yes. And if you have any thoughts on House of M yourself, and you're listening to this, you can reach out to us at cornercomicsofficial@gmail.com, or maybe leave some comments below. I do respond to those on my other videos, so I see no reason why I wouldn't this time. Also, hopefully cornercomics.net will be up and running very shortly, so we'll have a website. And if you've made it this far and you're still listening, maybe you'll like to listen.
Well done.
Yeah, well done. Maybe you'll like to listen to us in an audio-only version. We're working on getting that set up for this podcast as well. So it'll be available Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts. And on that note, gentlemen, we're out.
Oh, I forgot. That doesn't mean the same thing. Oh, well.